America's Cannabis Conversation. Time now for the lowdown on another high time experience. Here's 420 lifestyle correspondent Rich Walkoff.
Well, we're here at MJ BizCon in Las Vegas, home of the world's largest weed conference, and it is blowing up today. And I'm learning about a new product or a new technology or a new event. I don't know how you characterize it. Crypto Cannabis Club with Jimmy Fitzpatrick, the co-founder. You're a 2021 new guy, but you guys are blowing up. So tell me, what is a Crypto Cannabis Club?
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you stopping by. So Crypto Cannabis Club is an NFT project based on the Ethereum blockchain. So what we are is a generative project. We've got 10,000 characters. We call them our tokers. We've got over 170 traits, all nods to famous stoners from Ricky Williams, Willie Nelson, Cheech and Chong, Jay and Silent Bob. These are randomly generated to create our 10,000 characters. As an owner of one of our tokers, you've got access to benefits throughout the cannabis industry. So that's the main reason that we're here this weekend at MJ Biz, to get our face, our name out there, to network and start developing these partnerships to provide benefits to our holders. So right now we've got a couple small partnerships. So if you own a toker, you've got access to discounts for some CBD lines, merch lines, accessories, things like that. But the opportunities are endless with partnerships. Mm-hmm. So also, if you own one of the NFTs, you've got 100% commercial rights to brand that however you wish.
Yeah.
So you can use it for your packaging. You can brand a vape cartridge. If you've got creatives on your team, there's a ton that you can do with this.
So NFTs, one more time.
Non-fungible tokens.
All right. For the uninitiated.
So basically what this is, anything can become an NFT. Digital art, which is what we do, music, a joke could be an NFT. You could literally turn anything into an NFT, and essentially it's a proof of ownership that's tied into the blockchain to show I own this. All of our tokers right now, or our NFTs, are available on OpenSea and sold on the secondary market. So that's where you can find us at.
It's a brave new world. You're heading into territory uncharted, man. This is like you're into the cyberspace meets surreal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's new. It's cutting edge. The opportunities are limitless to what you can do with NFTs. So my brother and I, who are co-founders in the project, come from the cannabis industry. We've done the last 8 years out in Colorado, Oregon, and most recently Florida, running ops for one of the Florida operations. So we're trying to branch or bridge between the NFT crypto space and real world cannabis.
Yeah. Now, what was the genesis for this? How did you come up with this idea?
We've been dabbling in crypto for a while, and then once NFTs came about and caught our eye, we've just always kind of been entrepreneurs, and so we saw an opportunity to do something cool and bring this into the cannabis space. So that's how this all started, and it's been probably 6 to 8 month process before launching it. We launched early August. So 2.5 months in now.
Yeah, and you said your sales are how big?
We've done over $10 million in secondary sales.
That's outrageous. What about the names that you dropped, those celebrities? How involved are they in what you're doing? Or are they just giving you the licensing access?
So one of the biggest names, who's actually our newest partner, we announced it last week, Sean O'Malley, Sugar Sean O'Malley from the UFC. He's one of our partners. Ricky Williams is not a partner, but has now become a good friend. We talk to him all the time. He's an owner of the NFT, so we're looking to do some work with him, and we're excited about it. Several UFC fighters own the NFTs, Carlos Condit. But yeah, man, we're super excited. It's super new, and we're catching a lot of attention here at MJ Biz, and we're excited to educate people on the crypto/NFT space.
Yeah, it seems like you need about 5 minutes to tell everybody what you do, right? People come up and what is Crypto Cannabis Club? you got your spiel down pretty good.
Right, yeah. We can give you the elevator pitch pretty well at this point, but yeah, we can go pretty deep into it for the people that do have the time. So.
Where do you see this going? Where do you see this growing?
Our goal is to be the black card of the cannabis industry. So we're not just in one state. We're not just in the U.S. We're a worldwide brand. We've got owners in Europe, Amsterdam, England, Spain, Portugal, Argentina. So our vision is to be the black card of cannabis, and no matter where you are in the world, to be able to have access to cafes or companies in any of these countries.
So you're integrating the weed world with the technology world, with the art world, in promotion and marketing and such, right?
Absolutely. So this is a great space for creative minds. This NFT is a huge marketing tool. There's the opportunities are just absolutely endless to what you could do as an owner or a partner.
Yeah, tell me how it's received in certain of those European countries that you mentioned compared to here in the States.
Some of those countries, cannabis is not legal. So, doing something there would be difficult, but, wherever it is legal, we would love to talk to whoever about doing something with us, developing a partnership. Like I said, the opportunities are endless, and we're not just in the U.S., we're worldwide. So.
Sure. Now, when you have Ricky Williams, the UFC fighters, Ricky Williams was all-pro running back in the NFL, a guy who had issues with the NFL cannabis policy. What about the UFC, those fighters who are embracing, endorsing, and jumping on your Crypto Cannabis Club? Are there issues for them in their fight world competitions?
There's not actually, and good for the UFC for recognizing that cannabis is not a performance enhancer or anything that you need to worry about like that. So Sean O'Malley is a huge cannabis advocate. If you go on his Instagram, he's either training, playing video games, or smoking weed. So he's very vocal about it, and that's great. For people like Sha'Carri Richardson and Ricky Williams, who were frowned upon for cannabis or
bounced or just suspended or lost their opportunity to go to the Olympics, like Ms. Richardson.
It's extremely unfortunate, and we're here to be a voice and hopefully be a part in educating people and kind of slowly moving away from that.
Yeah, well, I think the wave is growing. The awareness is happening, and I think we're not far off from the time when cannabis will be perceived as medical and or recreational, but not performance enhancing, and certainly shouldn't be banned for use by competitors in the athletic arena.
Absolutely. It was really cool. We do a weekly podcast on Twitter Spaces. It's called Toker Talk. We do it every Wednesday, and we've had Ricky Williams on twice now. And the conversations have been absolutely amazing. Hearing from him what he went through in the NFL after failing his first drug test, and kind of how he went from where he was at in the NFL and that name that he had, and being true to himself and realizing that his passion was cannabis.
Right, and he walked away from the NFL, which has started to. I guess their theories or their rules on cannabis have evolved, and it's no longer a banned substance per se, but it is frowned upon, and it is certainly still in that in that gray area, if you will.
Yeah.
But what about Ricky? Tell me a little story about Ricky, because he's always been a guy going to the beat of his own drum and very independent thinking and a very enlightened guy. Didn't he get into ayahuasca too as well?
Yeah, he did. He's a super, super down-to-earth, humble guy. It's been amazing developing a friendship and a relationship with him. He's heavily invested in the cannabis industry now. He just launched Heisman, which is his new company, kind of play on words with, being a Heisman winner. So,
and get high while you hold your Heisman.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what it's all about. So,
how about some of the other athletes who you've been involved with and some of their input on the cannabis world?
Yeah, so aside from Ricky right now, the majority of them have been in the UFC. And, luckily for them, they can be vocal about it without, getting suspensions or anything like that. So for other athletes, they're probably more hesitant, even though we don't sell cannabis or anything THC related, and we're an NFT project, but it's still that gray area for them where, they'd probably be looked at and investigated for being involved. But UFC fighters, anyone who's retired and has been a cannabis user, a lot of basketball players.
I interviewed Matt Barnes, and he's got his the smoking section with Steven Jackson.
Yeah, he's got his podcast, Up in Smoke. So
Up in Smoke,
we listen to that all the time.
Right.
Yeah, we would love to, eventually one day talk to Matt Barnes, have him on our podcast, or hop on his, vice versa, and just chop it up, man. That's what we're about. We love the cannabis industry and everything that it entails. So,
well, congratulations on the launch and the amazing success. And it's a brave new world. You got to strap it on. You got your astronaut helmet because you're into the stratosphere with what you're doing. This is something beyond anything I'd ever even heard of or thought about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's funny that you mentioned that because in the NFT space, when a project's doing good or people see potential in it, they say we're going to the moon. So we're going to the moon.
Don't limit yourself. You can go even farther.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That's Jimmy Fitzpatrick from Crypto Cannabis Club. You're the co-founder, bud. It's just awesome on the America's Cannabis Conversation. I'm Rich Walcott here at MJ BizCon, the largest weed festival in the world, the largest conference of its kind in the world in Las Vegas. And this is the W420 Radio Network. And we'll be right back.
Thanks, Rich.
Man, you did awesome.
You're listening to America's Cannabis Conversation on W420RadioNetwork.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, the doctor is in the house. Yes, here we are at MJ BizCon in Las Vegas, the world's largest weed conference. And I'm with Dr. Lance McCarthy, who works as a board advisor for Minorities for medical marijuana. We hooked up last night at the get-together in town. It was off the hook, and you gave an impassioned speech about connecting people to opportunities in the marijuana industry for minorities. I mean, give me an overview how challenging it is for people of color to get in this booming industry.
Yes, glad to be on the show this morning. The difficulty in the industry has always been the lack of access to capital. You have the skill set, been able to work in the industry, but it's always been the lack of access to capital. So with Minorities for Medical Marijuana, we try to galvanize the organization to be able to help minorities get into and sustain in the industry.
Yeah. Now, who is backing you? Who's funding your projects?
Good question. We have quite a bit of major corporate donors. Some of the major players, Turnleaf, Curaleaf, Hawthorne, a lot of the major players in the cannabis space are our sponsors and partners.
Yeah. So now, is there progress being made, or is that glass ceiling thicker than ever?
I think there is being slowly but surely some progress. But when you look at the comparative analysis of those who have been disproportionate on the legal system for minorities, we believe that we have to continue to make more of a significant impact as we move this agenda forward.
Yeah. Now, is the government kind of bringing some affirmative action type programs into play to help minorities get a foothold in the industry?
Good question. Everything is statewide because it's not federal yet. So we work with state legislators to make sure that you have social equity on those state applications. And quite honestly, a lot of the states give extra benefits by having a social equity or minority partner in their application.
Mm-hmm. Are there certain states that are more receptive and more favorable, and others that you're still banging on the door to get in?
Another good question. Yes, what we believe is one of the best pieces of legislation is in Illinois. In Evansville, Illinois, they were able to look at not only social equity, but also reparations from new taxes that came from marijuana and cannabis will go to reparations and assist minorities. So we believe that's one of the best pieces of legislation we've seen on a state level.
And how about the flip side? How about the more challenging states?
Yeah, well, there's some states that are very challenging because the cost to get into entry is very difficult. And again, we're trying to incentivize by having social equity. So yes, you have the wide extreme, the benefit and those who aren't.
Yeah. So do we have a percentage in the industry that minorities represent in terms of ownership of dispensaries or businesses and the like?
I would say that it's less than 2% of the industry. Yeah, and you have 40% that are in prison because of cannabis. So that's a very strong variance of how we have to flip that number and be able to change the game.
Yeah, now expunging criminal records for possession of marijuana, that's been the rage of late, but still the disproportionate impact on people of color remains a sticking point big time.
Yes, Minorities of American Marijuana are very excited that we do these expungement clinics all across the country. We've done them in California, Missouri, New Jersey. So we really try to help people come out in one day and get their records expunged so they can have a second chance to get back into the marketplace.
So that's kind of a legal aid opportunity?
Yes. We deal with the local lawyers, legal aid, other volunteers. It's really a great event. We do about 9 to 12 on a Saturday morning. We've done everywhere from 50 to 100 people in one day.
That's awesome. So, you're armed with information and professional advice that goes a long way. Now, your social activism goes beyond this realm, and you shared with me last night about your involvement with the George Floyd's family.
Yes, sir.
And you got to tell me more about that and tell our listeners in America's Cannabis Conversation.
Yeah, I've been an activist in economic development for years. It actually started with the Urban League. I was the president of the Urban League in Orlando. Then it went to Ferguson. I was able to create an economic development platform in Ferguson. And most recently, the George Floyd Foundation. I've been appointed the economic advisor to be able to help create the program, social economic justice, technology and youth, as well as workforce and entrepreneurship.
And how has that been going? How are you being received? And you talked about corporate funding for M4MM, Minorities for Medical Marijuana. How about in the George Floyd family pursuits?
Yes, well, the name is very recognized. What we're doing these first 60 days is making brand awareness. People know the name, but now we're making the industry understand what we're doing. And then from there, we'll be able to create partnerships and get funding.
Yeah. Now, how long has M4MM been around, and how's the growth going?
Great. It's been around a little bit over 5 years, 33 states across the country, 3 countries. Have won numerous awards, the top 100 in diversity, the top 100 in cannabis, featured in Forbes magazine for our boot camps, helping minorities get into the play. We've had significant growth from 5 years.
Well, that's great. But interesting double-edged sword. You talk about the disproportionate punishment of minorities for cannabis possession or sale and the lack of opportunities to get in the industry. You're getting it at both ends.
Yes, sir. It is a dichotomy, but we know that it's significant. We know this industry is not going anywhere. We want to make sure that we have impact for minorities from all levels, from growing, dispensaries, distribution, the whole gamut.
Okay, so where do you bring your message? I mean, here at MJ BizCon in Las Vegas, you have the absolute biggest in the industry worldwide. So how do you get it out? Other than looking so dapper, we got to take some photos to show everybody this man's like GQ City.
Yes, we do conferences all across the country. We go to the national cannabis conferences. We go into states and do state conferences. We do quite a bit. We have, again, 33 chapter leaders around the country. We do a lot of online education, so we get the word out.
Yeah. Now, are you optimistic that progress is going to accelerate, or perhaps are you feeling as though there is just a lot of headwinds?
No, I think we're going to make continuously impact and continue to grow. We can't go anywhere but up. We constantly get momentum with large corporations and small corporations, so we're making significant impact.
Yeah, and last night we heard from Naomi Tosh, the daughter of the late, great reggae man, Peter Tosh, yes. And she's an advocate. But share a little bit about her story and her involvement.
Yes, so we're working with her because, of course, her father was an advocate of cannabis way back in the day. And so having the legacy of her being able to continue with her father's footsteps and partnering with us gives a strong history and legacy as we move this agenda forward.
It seems like getting celebrities and influencers to join the fight seems critical. So tell me, have you been successful in that? And who are you chasing down to, raise the flag?
Yeah, there are some significant impact in the celebrity realm. Al Harrington, who was a former NBA player, just partnered with Allen Iverson. They released a strand about 2 weeks ago. Chris Webber is creating a $50 million fund to help minorities in the cannabis space in Detroit. So you're starting to have some celebrities and athletes who's starting to leverage their brands into the cannabis space, which only helps us all.
Yeah, so obviously you need the tools, you need the opportunity, and then let me make my way, like teaching a guy how to fish rather than giving him a fish. No one's looking for a handout. No. You just want to level the playing field and make it equal opportunity.
Yeah, my philosophy, let's own the fish pond. This is a strong economy, a strong industry. We know it's going to grow, and we want to be a part of it with minorities.
Well, that's awesome. Anything else you want to share on M4MM, Minorities for Medical Marijuana, a growing, burgeoning entity, and it's a 501c3, right?
Yes,
You're a nonprofit, but if people want to get involved or make a contribution?
Yes, they can come to our website, m4mmunited.org, m4mmunited.org.
Sweet. And you gave almost an invocation last night at this mixer. You have a little spiritual channeling going on. You got to share a little of your message.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm one of the few faith-based economists in the country, and so anytime I'm in front of an audience, I want to be able to share spirituality and know that God leads us where we need to go. And I was very fortunate to have a couple minutes last night to do that.
Well, it was awesome to hear you and catch up today and give our audience a chance to get to know you. Dr. Lance McCarthy here at MJ BizCon. Rich Walkoff at America's Cannabis Conversation. We're having a blast and doing good deeds on the W420 Radio Network. We'll be right back.
Are you interested in learning more about cannabis? Have you thought about starting your own cannabis business but don't know how? If so, we invite you to join the Cannabis Conversation with other people like you who are looking at the exciting opportunities in this exploding business. Listen to America's Cannabis Conversation. You'll hear from industry experts and get insights into the cannabis industry. For archived shows and for more information, log on to americascannabisconversation.com.
Welcome back to the conversation. This is Chase Roberts, Women in Cannabis correspondent for the W420 Radio Network. It's a pleasure to introduce to you Amanda Rogers. She is a small business owner, teacher, wife, and mom. She is also the founder of Canna Moms Are Good Moms Too. And in the fall 2021, a guest speaker at the Women in Cannabis Expo. Amanda, welcome. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. For our listeners, please do tell, what is Canna Moms Are Good Moms Too?
Canna Moms Are Good Moms Too is a nonprofit that I started out as a group and then ended up turning into a nonprofit because I had such a big turnover. It is a safe, private space where moms can come together that consume cannabis. So we can do our stories, we can swap Me Too's, but also I take it a little bit further and I look into law and I break it down by states. We're actually doing a case up in Canada right now. So it kind of turned into a movement. And what Canna Moms Are Good Moms Too is a big private group. We're worldwide. Right now we got over 6,000 members worldwide. And it's all of us coming together saying Me Too to stop this stigma that I'm no different than a mom that takes a Xanax or a mom that takes, her wine in the evening. We just need to normalize it.
Correct. Just another avenue to decompress.
Mm-hmm.
Why was it started? I know what was your personal reasons? What was the impetus for you starting this?
Well, before I decided to full force head dive into this nonprofit, I owned a private daycare here at my home. And it was actually the whole bottom part of my house. My husband and I converted it into a daycare. Well, everything got shut down due to COVID. So I didn't have any work. And therefore my stress levels are going up just like everybody else's, money, just all of the things that came with COVID when COVID started. So my consumption of cannabis started getting higher, but I was noticing that it was more medicating me than it was like getting me high or stoned. So then I started doing research into it, and I'm like, oh, I can get my medical card and I can do this all right. But then I was like, wait a minute. I own a small daycare. Are their parents really going to be like, oh, even though she does it medically, are we still going to take our kids to see her? You know what I mean? Like, so that stigma just like,
it's a concern.
Well, what if I lose all my clientele? What if nobody comes back? What if everybody, just starts this bad mouthing my business? So then I'm like, I cannot be the only one that feels this way. I cannot be the only one that just wants to medicate and show the world that it's okay. So one night I got really high because I was really upset, and I called my best friend, and she was like, right, like there's no way it's just us. And that night I built the group, and within 2 months we were at like 3,000 members. And I was like, so we're turning this into a nonprofit because apparently it's not just me. And there are so many of us with a story that could change a life or just show the medical world like this really is a thing, that I was like, this has got to happen. Like, we've got to start screaming this a little bit more.
What are some of the consistent crazy stigmas you hear or your group has heard? Or, I mean, I'm sure we could all speculate some of the normal ones, but go ahead and name some for our listeners. Like,
the biggest one is breastfeeding while consuming. So a lot of people, so that's like the biggest like stigma we get in the group. Like, we have all of these moms like, I'm pregnant, or, hey, I'm breastfeeding and I consume, but all of these people are like, I'm going to kill my baby, or I'm going to disform my child, or I'm too lazy that, what if the baby cries in the middle of the night and I'm too high that I can't get up? When really that's not how it works. And what a lot of people don't know is our breasts actually naturally produce cannabinoids, and us consuming is just actually boosting it.
I think there is a lot of misinformation out there. Like, for example, I'm sure you're aware, like even the CDC says they can't research it accurately enough. And therefore, to be on the safe side, they tell moms not to do it.
Yep.
I mean, with the precursor, like I said, that they can't accurately research it. Have you found any white papers that back up with science confirmed, or doctors agreeing with? And yeah, can you go into that a little bit so our listeners can look these people up as well, or research?
I don't have the names offhand, but if they come into my group, I literally have it pinned as an announcement on the top of the group. Like, you can't miss it when you come in. I've got charts and I've got links and I've got breakdowns where there were studies. A lot of the studies are actually coming out of other countries, which makes it kind of hard for us to be here in America, be like, oh, us too, because, that's just how it is. Yeah. But there are some American studies that I have found, like I said, that are pinned in the group, where doctors did side studies on these moms, kind of like a hush, you know what I mean? Like, they can't just say like, I'm doing doing this to this mom, or, well, she agreed, like there's consent, that have broken down studies far enough that there's charts with numbers of how much you actually, when you consume, how much your body breaks down and how much your body actually pushes out.
And how much your Facebook group.
My private Facebook group. Yeah.
Right. And now, in general, could everyone join your Facebook group if they ask for?
Well, females. Right now we're sticking to the moms.
Yeah. And how many children do you have?
I have one.
Her, him?
Him. It's Wyatt. Yeah. I had to have a hysterectomy 2 years after I had him. So I had my one, and he's perfect.
Here you are, Canna Mom, helping other moms. What are some of the things that you find are the most beneficial for medical purpose for moms? I mean, obviously it helps with relaxation. Is there other things you think you're a proponent of that?
To be completely honest with you, it makes you more focused and present for your child.
There's so much chaos going on.
Absolutely.
And do you have a recommended strain you like, or are these things you discuss in the group?
So I don't recommend strains, only due to, because I am trying to properly educate. Each strain does something different for everybody. So like for me, I can't do sativa. Sativa is like, an upper for me. Like it just makes me like absolutely like crazy and all over the place. But then my husband takes it and it mellows him down. And then so what I do in the group, instead of recommending a strain, we break down the person themselves. Like, okay, what are your ailments? Okay, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And then we just go through and try and find what works for them. Now, me personally, for my own, Rockstar Indica is my fave.
I've heard that from so many people.
So good.
Interesting. And what do you think some of the most positive changes you're contributing right now? I mean, you do education, you do women's support. Can you go into a little detail about what that entails?
We have women that literally will come into the group and thank everybody in it for just having somebody that's there for them. But a lot of it is the proper education. Like we get stuff all the time going, oh, I didn't know that the word marijuana was a derogatory term. And you're like, yes, it is. And then you go back to like, well, I don't want to educate because they don't want to listen. And then I tell them how important it is. And then what they do is they take all of this back. And because they don't feel alone, they are starting to speak out a little bit more. But the group, what a lot of the group has done is we've had people tell us that the group has like literally saved their lives just having somebody that they can talk to. And I think that's really the biggest thing with it.
I don't know if you can do this because it's a private group, but are there notables in your group that recognizable names to most people? I'll just leave it at that.
Some of them are coming to the expo too. And let me tell you, because I've done this all online up until Reno.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to finally meet them.
Yes. And you have more expos in the horizon for yourself.
I have 2 more. I have 2 in October.
Love it. And then when did you start? I believe you started in December of 2020.
Exactly. December 2020.
And in this short amount of time, you have 6,000 members. You mentioned global members. Is there one country that stands out globally that seems more on board with this than
Australia?
Interesting. What are the laws in Australia? Is it legal?
It just became legal. It just became legal in Australia.
For recreation and medicinal. Wow, that's interesting. I wouldn't have speculated that.
Me neither.
What are some of the workshops you guys offer online?
We haven't started any of the workshops yet. We're going to start doing our workshops, but then everything went like really slow and I started planning things. And then all of a sudden everything started picking up and I haven't got to them. But what we have on the horizon planned is we're going to do a cooking workshop where we're going to have somebody that comes on once a week and can show you how to make different, not just sweets, but like different foods, like dinners, breakfasts, lunch, and how to infuse them. So that way you can medicate like with your breakfast or your snack or your coffee. We have a nurse that when I get back from Reno, her and I are going to meet back up. We have a nurse that's going to start coming in once a month to answer questions directly from members of the group.
I think that's a valuable asset. It legitimizes the concern.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly. As soon as I found her, I started messaging her and kind of telling her about what I did. And she was like, oh, that's wonderful. And I was like, how would you feel about coming like once a month and just answering questions? She was like, I would be honored. I was like, thank you. Because coming from a nurse that's in the field that has like looking at these studies from the doctor's side is going to mean a little bit more to these moms that are asking these questions versus my links that I'm sending.
Right. Absolutely. Do you think there's a point you'll ever put the links that are in the private group regarding the science on your business website?
You know what? It might be on my public Facebook page, but that's my website is still being built. The first person that built it messed it up really bad, and I'm in the process of rebuilding it. But there is going to be a section off of my blog section of my research findings.
I just want to make sure our listeners have the opportunity and the ability to look this up for themselves based on your research, so they can delve into it as well.
If it's not on my public Facebook page, I'll look when we get off of here. I will put it on today. I will make sure all of that's on there for everybody.
Fantastic. And I also, didn't you grow up in South Carolina? Where are you from originally?
I did. Yeah, I'm from the East Coast.
What does your family back home think of this shift? I know there's a great debate, in all of the states, what's the right and the wrong with cannabis, but
you know what, family, if you're listening to this, because I always post it all over all my social media, I'm going to be completely honest. A lot of them partake, but it is very hush hush. You don't speak about it type thing. It's like behind closed doors.
Stigma, even within family.
Correct.
Which is the irony. Yeah.
It is.
So Amanda, I want to congratulate you. You just recently won Woman on the Rise at the Women in Cannabis Expo in Reno. Congratulations on that. And I also want to thank you for being here. If you missed any of this great interview with Amanda Rogers, you can go to W420radionetwork.com and click on the archive section to listen to this and other great interviews. And we'll be right back.
America's newest and fastest growing cannabis-focused radio network is expanding across the country and looking to add to our sales and marketing team. America's Cannabis Conversation offers listeners insight and information on the exploding world of cannabis. It also gives advertisers the opportunity to reach a hyper-targeted audience, literally neighborhood by neighborhood, in markets all across the country. We're looking for a few motivated individuals that want to essentially run their own local business. To learn more about this exciting opportunity or to apply, visit americascannabisconversation.com.
Welcome back to the conversation, and joining us today is Erwin Simon, who is going to be the CEO of a newly merged operation that will carry the name Tilray. And we want to talk to him about what's going on in the business. Erwin, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm fascinated with the idea that this was a merger of two companies that created, in terms of revenue, the largest cannabis company in the world at the moment. But it appears that there may be other mergers behind you that are nipping at your heels. Is merger where this country's going to go and where these companies are going to go going forward?
Good question. I think you come back and you look at every industry today and you look at the world today. Consolidation is more the word, and it's got to be consolidation for the right reason, just not a merger or an acquisition just to say, hey, I did an acquisition or I did a merger. In our case, when I took over Aphira 2 years ago, there was lots of challenges. And with that, the first and foremost was to make sure that Aphira was stable, the foundation was strong, there was a real good strategy, and that we emerged to be the number one supplier in regards to sales share and EBITDA in Canada. As I stepped back and I looked at Aphira from a global footprint and what did I need to do? Canada's a great country. I'm Canadian, grew up there. There's limitations to what you can do and how big it can grow. Mm-hmm. So with that, because cannabis is not legal federally yet in the U.S., I couldn't go out and buy another Canadian cannabis company. I did go out and buy a U.S. beer company, alcohol company. I couldn't go out and buy anything in Europe other than a medical business. So Tilray was absolutely the right way to go. It was a U.S. domiciled company. It had a very good medical platform in Canada. It had one of the top medical platforms in Europe. They had a U.S. footprint with Manitoba Harvest. And with that, there was lots of synergies to bring the two together. So it's a consolidation. It was a reverse merger. It allowed me to don't re-domicile back into the U.S., which there's advantages to that. And it set up a company that has tremendous growth opportunities around the world, and also now has a footprint in the U.S. When legalization does happen in the U.S., there's a good opportunity for us to be, at the top of the pack there.
Erwin, we had on our show a CEO of a cannabis research company a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about the changes because of the UN resolution on decriminalization of cannabis, a boon to business in Europe. But when I asked her about sale of recreational, she said, no, the boom in Europe is going to be companies that are going to get in business to do business in the United States, that the United States is still the greatest opportunity, at least for now, in the world. Where do you see your combined companies going?
So, again, she is absolutely right. If you come back and look at the United States and you look at Canada today, it's a $6 billion business there. You look at the U.S., it's a $60 billion business. And then you look at all the other derivative products that could come from it in drinks, food products, pet food, etc. So the U.S., major opportunity, and also the U.S. is a major opportunity in regards to medical. And I come back and say between medical, between consumer products, and between recreational, it's a $100 billion opportunity. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, I come back and I'm still fascinated by the opportunities in Europe. I think medical is legal in a lot of countries today, whether it's Germany, whether it's Portugal, whether it's in other countries. Israel, I'm told is going to legalize. Germany's going to legalize. There's 600 million people in Europe. So Europe, if you come back and look at it from a size standpoint, is absolutely bigger than the U.S. So I think there's tremendous opportunities in Europe. And I think, again, and personally, I built a consumer packaged goods business in the U.S. and the rest of the world. That was a $3.5 billion company. So with that, I absolutely agree with her. The U.S. is, where some of the bigger prize money is. But on the other hand, you can't sit back and just wait for legalization to happen, okay? The Biden administration is not going to be on the agenda for the first 100 days. And, we got to go through the Safe Bank Act. We got to go through the MORE Act. We got to go through legalization. Then we'd have to go through, once if it was legalized, how do you run it by the states versus the federal government? No different than alcohol when it was legalized. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot before I believe I'm going to be able to sell cannabis in the U.S. from a recreational standpoint. I think we're a few years out. But what's going to be important, though, is if we can get them the Safe Bank Act passed or the MORE Act, which is decriminalization, that's going to be a big movement because it allows you from a commerce standpoint in regards to dealing with banks. It allows you to ultimately institutional investors invest in your company, and a lot can happen in regards to the financial ways once banking is approved, because now it's very difficult to get institutions. It's very difficult to deal with U.S. banks because of legalization and not being legal.
Right. You mentioned something which I thought was very interesting because of some of your contemporaries that I've had on the show don't seem to have the same kind of vision you have. If I'm understanding you correctly, you seem to think that the medical market is a very important market to the long-term success of the industry and of your company. There are a lot of people who don't think we need a medical market, that the adult use will take care of the medical market. Where do you come down on that?
I am big on the medical market. I think there's a lot of opportunities, and I see it. I hear it about patients today in regards to anxiety, in regards to pain, in regards to sleep. I see it in regards to patients that are suffering from cancer and on, harsh chemotherapy. So I absolutely think there's a lot of research and development, and that's something I'm behind to stay focused on the medical world and would be a part of it. I think it's a major replacement from opioids, and so medical will be something that we're going to absolutely focus on.
I was speaking to Erwin before we went on the air today and about looking at some of the research on his company and the various medical research projects that he's got going on, which is amazing. We are so far behind the curve in what we should have been doing if we had had a more freer market and less criminal proceedings. We could be doing a lot more work in the areas that you've talked about with medical research. Thank God we're starting to do it today, but we're really behind the curve. And
absolutely. And, in Europe, epilepsy. We have seen in regards to kids having 300 plus seizures a day, they're down to 2 or 3 a day. We have seen in regards to anxiety in research working with hospitals there. So I happen to think medical is a very, very important part. And the good news is a lot of companies are dismissing it, and I see that's our opportunity.
Yeah. I have people tell me that there is a distinct difference in the products that you would use in a medical situation versus products you would use in recreational, and they don't cross borders very well. That some of the side effects on the recreational would not be desirable on the part of medical. And so the idea that you're committed to the medical from a business standpoint, because it's going to be a huge market, and it's a big market in the United States. Canada has total deregulation. Do they make a significant difference between medical and recreational?
There is a significant on the different strains and the different products. And so there absolutely is. And because you're being prescribed, and there has to be, because are you being prescribed it for pain? There's different cannabis there that keep you awake. There's different cannabis that put you asleep. So definitely. And again, the big thing is being somebody who's created a lot of natural organic food brands. To me, this is not about smoking recreational cannabis for a high. There's an enjoyment part of it here. But as you said, there's a big emphasis from myself personally just on the medical side too. And I think that's really important for adults, for kids, for whoever absolutely needs it. And there's a lot of training and education on it, because the first thing, if my 80-year-old mother, I said to her, I want you to have some cannabis for your arthritis. So you want me to smoke pot? No, I don't want you to smoke pot. I want you to take a medicine for it. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I want to look into your brain. I was going to say crystal ball, but it's more important to look into your brain.
Tell me what you can tell me when you look into it. What's in there too? Okay.
Sure, I will. I want to know, as a person who has been obviously involved in this business, now the largest in the world, where do you see your company going, and what are the opportunities today with what you know, and then look into your future and tell me what you think is going to happen as it relates to where this company and the industry is going to go?
Great question. Look into my brain and look into a vision, and I like to be known somewhat as a visionary. Back in 1993, I went out and started a natural organic food company, and back then, consumers in the world thought I was crazy. Who's going to eat healthy? Who's going to eat natural organic, etc. When I start talking about organic, most people didn't know what it meant. Start talking about, clean foods, genetically modified ingredients, no pesticides and whatever. And there's pesticides in food and what they spray it with. So, move the video camera ahead in 27, 30 years. Everybody today is educated about ingredients, natural foods, sustainability, how it's grown, where it's grown, etc. The cannabis industry reminds me so much of that. And we're in similar stages here where perception was, we're smoking pot, we're getting high, we're back to Woodstock days. So with that, cannabis today has, again, from quality, from regulation, from safety, and that has changed tremendously. And so what I'm trying to build within Aphira and Tilray, and will be the new Tilray, will be a consumer packaged goods company built around cannabis, built around brands, brand equity, and built around product lines that are a derivative from cannabis, both in food, both in recreational, and in medical. And building a global company, with that. And as we step back, one of the biggest things that we have to do is educate the world about cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not a drug, that you're doing something illegal. If I asked my mother to smoke it because it was something that she should be taking for her pain or her arthritis or her sleep, it's probably better off that she is, smoking a pre-roll or smoking a vape than taking some of the pills that she was being given by her pharmacist or her doctor. Mm-hmm. If I was asking my kids in college today, it's okay for them to smoke a vape or a pre-roll instead of drinking hard liquor. It's probably better for their brain, for their liver, etc. And with that, they're not going to have the same hangover in the morning. So with that, there's a big education, process that we have to go through, the benefits of cannabis. Number two is we got to get consumers familiarized with brands, just like they're familiarized with buying a Bud or buying, a Coors Light or something like that. And the third thing is what we have to do is make sure, from a regulatory standpoint, if we say, it helps with sleep deprivation, it helps with pain, it helps with epilepsy, we have the research behind it to support it. And that's what's important today to get out there with consumers. With that, it's out there. There's tons and tons and tons or billions of dollars of tax dollars that the states and, Washington is losing because it's not regulated. And, individuals are out there buying products from an illicit market where, who's getting the money from that. So that's in my brain today. If you looked in, what I want to do is commercialize, build brands, build products, educate, get distribution, and make sure when you buy it for pain, that's what the benefit you're getting. When you buy it for sleep, that's what it's going to be used for. It's not just perceived, to smoke a joint. And the whole thing today is I don't use the word joint. I don't use the word smoking pot. It's cannabis or marijuana. It's not a joint. It's a pre-roll. And just, modernize this whole industry.
So how are you going to take your new company into the United States market?
So right now, I'm into the United States. I recently acquired Sweetwater Brewery that has numerous beers, one being 420. We all know what 420 is. We
right.
also have other beers that have terpenes that come from, marijuana, even though there's no marijuana in there. We're introducing some beers with our brands out of Canada. Hopefully very soon we're going to be able to do some stuff with CBD and hemp beers. So right now, we'll only do stuff that's legal and, make sure we'll do that. The second thing is hopefully we see, Congress and Senate pass the Bank Act, which will allow us to trade, from a financial standpoint and deal with banks. The third thing, hopefully, we're going to see, medical cannabis become legalized. But before that happens, ultimately, my plan coming into the U.S. is get more and more into the consumer type of products where I don't touch the plant. And once legalization does happen, I have the ability to use the companies we own today to get into the cannabis business. The other thing is this here. If we are one of the biggest, cannabis companies in the world because of Canada and in Europe because of medical, financially we're a strong company. And we've done a lot in regards to building brands, innovation, research, and development. I think there's going to be a big opportunity to come into the U.S. when legalization happens, or we would buy someone coming into the U.S.
So would you, following that thought, would you, even though we don't have delegalization or yet, there are lots of people buying existing companies in various states. Is that on your radar screen, the possibility of buying a manufacturer that operates in Florida or California or Texas or wherever to get your toe into the water, into the cannabis business in the U.S.?
I would not, and the only way I could buy it, I only could buy a certain percentage and have certain rights. I would not do that because, again, I'm not somebody who likes to buy and do something where there's an unknown. So I'm not sure when legalization will happen. And if I bought, like Canopy has done, part of Acreage and part of TerraSand, there's a lot of unknowns out there of ultimately what will happen when legalization happens. I'd rather buy consumer companies that make money, that have a really good platform, that have the ability to move into the cannabis world and have brands when cannabis legalized, instead of getting into something where I just don't know where it's going to be or where I can go. And I only can own, 19% of it, and I have no involvement in running a company, managing a company. It's not the right thing for my shareholders, is my opinion.
There are some people that think, Irwin, that where the industry is headed is the mom and pops will be gone. That, and I'm not being critical of your organization, that the larger companies that are more well capitalized can come in and take over markets through acquisition at fair values. But the idea of the local mom and pop store is going to die rapidly, especially if we get decriminalization.
Listen, that happens today, and I think the important thing that happening, we have to make sure we have good quality control and good regulatory. I agree with you, and there's got to be opportunity for small business, and I'm a big believer in supporting small business and how do you do both. But, the Circle Ks, the 7-Elevens, the big retailers are absolutely all over this already, okay? I think you're going to absolutely see that, but the real strong and the real good small, operators will survive. The ones that are not run right or not well capitalized, 100% right. There's a good chance they do not make it. But I come back and I say this here. One of the big things that's going to happen here is got to have good regulation, good quality, and they're only selling products in these stores that are approved products. I think there's some small mom and pops that are just not selling, is it legalized products, et cetera. I'm not sure. So absolutely could happen.
Well, unfortunately, Irwin, boy, this time went fast. We're out of time. We've been speaking to the CEO of Truly, Irwin Simon. And thank you for joining us today. How can people follow you and your company?
So people can follow us, on Aphira.com. And, there's a lot of good information out there about our recent, acquisition with Tilray, our recent acquisition with Sweetwater, and what we're doing in the community from our sustainability reports, how we give back, and, what our products are, the quality of the strains. I'm big and a believer is go to the tallest building in the world and keep screaming all the great things you're doing.
Thank you. Now, if you missed any of this terrific interview with Irwin Simon of Tilray, go to W420radionetwork.com, go to the archive section, and you can replay this show at your leisure and list a bunch of other stuff.
You're listening to America's Cannabis Conversation on the W420 Radio Network. Everywhere you look, you see stories about cannabis and CBD. But how can you trust that you're getting accurate information? We want to introduce you to a new radio program called America's Cannabis Conversation, hosted by Dan Perkins. This program is designed to help you gain as much information as you can about the cannabis industry. If you're considering starting your own cannabis business, listen and find out if the cannabis business is right for you. Do you have pain, sleep problems, or other illnesses? Find out if cannabis or CBD might help you. Tune in to our Cannabis Doctor on Call feature and hear how cannabis and CBD has helped others. The serial cannabis entrepreneur can help you decide if the cannabis business is right for you. Every week, this 1-hour program connects you with experts from many facets of the cannabis business to grow your knowledge and help you make better, more informed decisions. Listen to America's Cannabis Conversation. W420radionetwork.com